Elena Voss had spent 3 years hiding what she was. She had learned to walk with her shoulders low, to keep her eyes down, to speak only when spoken to. She had learned that the safest way to survive among wolves was to seem like nothing worth noticing. It had worked, mostly, until the letter arrived. The letter bore the seal of Alpha King Damian Cross, ruler of the Northern Territories, and it commanded every unmated wolf under his rule to attend the annual choosing at his stronghold. Attendance was not truly optional. Refusal meant exile, and exile meant death for a lone wolf in winter. So Elena packed a single bag, said goodbye to the quiet border pack that had sheltered her, and began the long walk north. She did not want to go. She had built a small, careful life for herself among the border packs, tending gardens, mending fences, staying out of sight. The choosing was a place for wolves with pride and pedigree, wolves who wanted to be seen. Elena wanted only to be left alone, but the border pack's elder, an old wolf named Marta, who had taken Elena in without asking questions, placed a hand on her shoulder before she left. "Whatever happens up there," Marta said, "remember who you are, not who they say you are." Elena did not fully understand what Marta meant. She only nodded, shouldered her bag, and walked toward the mountains where the Alpha King's stronghold waited. The journey took 4 days. By the time Elena arrived, her boots were worn through, and her cloak was stiff with frost. The stronghold rose before her like something carved from the mountain itself, all dark stone and high towers, banners snapping in the wind. Wolves from every pack in the north streamed through its gates, dressed in silk and fur, laughing and greeting old friends. Elena slipped in among them, trying to become invisible, the way she always did. The great hall was enormous, lit by 100 torches, and packed with wolves of every rank. At the far end, on a raised dais, stood a throne carved from black stone, and on that throne sat the Alpha King. Damian Cross was exactly as the stories described him. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and darker eyes, he carried himself like a man who had never once doubted his place in the world. He watched the crowd with an expression of mild boredom, as though the entire ceremony was beneath him, and in truth, perhaps it was. He was the strongest alpha in 3 generations. Every wolf in that hall knew it, and so did he. Elena found a spot near the back wall, behind a pillar, where she hoped to remain unnoticed until the ceremony ended and she could slip away home. For nearly an hour, her plan worked. Then Damian's eyes found her. She never understood exactly what drew his attention. Perhaps it was her plain gray cloak among the silks and jewels. Perhaps it was the way she kept her gaze fixed on the floor while every other wolf in the hall watched him with open admiration. Whatever the reason, his eyes settled on her, and he did not look away. "You," his voice cut through the noise of the hall, and the crowd fell silent almost instantly. The one hiding by the pillar stepped forward. Elena's stomach dropped. For a moment, she considered pretending she had not heard him, but wolves who ignored a direct order from an Alpha King did not remain welcome anywhere in the north. She stepped out from behind the pillar and walked toward the dais, feeling every eye in the hall turn to follow her. Damian rose from his throne and descended a few steps, studying her the way a merchant studies a horse he has no intention of buying. "What pack do you come from?" "The border settlement near Ashwood, my lord," Elena said quietly. A ripple of quiet laughter moved through the crowd. The border packs were known as the poorest, weakest packs in the north, home to strays and outcasts who had nowhere else to go. Damian's mouth curved into something that was not quite a smile. "The border packs," he said the words as though tasting something unpleasant. "I should have known. You smell of dust and old wood smoke. No proper training. No pedigree worth mentioning." He circled her slowly, the way predators circle something they have already decided is beneath their notice. "Tell me, girl, what did you hope to accomplish by coming here? Did you truly believe you belonged among wolves of real standing?" Elena said nothing. She had learned long ago that silence drew less attention than defense, but silence this time seemed to irritate him further. "Nothing to say?" Damian stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Weak blood rarely has much to offer in the way of conversation, I suppose." He turned to address the hall, raising his voice so that every wolf could hear him clearly. "This is what happens when we allow anyone to attend the choosing. Border trash, wasting the time of wolves who actually matter. He looked back at Elena, his dark eyes flat and dismissive. Crawl back to whatever gutter you came from. You do not belong here, and you never will. The hall erupted into laughter. Some wolves covered their mouths politely. Others did not bother to hide their amusement at all. Elena stood very still in the center of it, her face burning, her hands curling into fists at her sides. She had been mocked before. She had been called weak, worthless, unwanted. She had survived all of it by staying quiet and staying small. But something about this moment felt different. Perhaps it was the exhaustion of the long journey. Perhaps it was 3 years of swallowing every insult without ever once speaking back. Perhaps it was simply that she was tired, so very tired, of pretending to be less than she was. "You shouldn't have said that," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the laughter like a blade. The hall fell silent again, this time out of surprise rather than command. Damien's eyebrows rose, more amused than alarmed. "Excuse me? You don't know anything about me," Elena said, lifting her chin. "You don't know where I come from, or what I've survived, or what I carry inside me. You looked at my clothes and decided I was nothing. That says far more about you than it does about me." A murmur ran through the crowd. No one spoke to the Alpha King that way. Damien's amusement faded into something colder. "Careful, girl," he said. "I have shown patience tonight. Do not mistake it for something you can spend freely." Somewhere high above the hall, a clock began to chime. It was midnight. Elena felt it before she understood it, a warmth spreading beneath her skin, old and vast and long buried. She had felt this sensation only once before, on the night her family died, and she had fled into the forest alone, too frightened and too young to let it fully wake. She had spent 3 years since then keeping it locked away, terrified of what it meant, terrified of what would happen if anyone ever saw it. But standing in that hall, surrounded by laughing strangers, and a king who looked at her like she was nothing, Elena stopped fighting it. Light began to spill from beneath her skin, soft and silver, like moonlight given form. Gasps rose from the crowd, as her shadow stretched unnaturally against the stone walls. Damien took an instinctive step back, his own composure cracking for the first time that night. "What is this?" he demanded, though his voice had lost its earlier confidence. Elena did not answer. She could not have, even if she wanted to. The change moved through her like a wave she no longer had the strength or the will to resist. Where a moment before had stood a tired, travel-worn young woman, now stood something else entirely. Her wolf emerged, and it was unlike anything in that hall had ever witnessed. It was larger than any wolf present, larger even than Damien's own formidable form, its fur pale as fresh snow beneath moonlight, its eyes burning a deep and steady gold. Across its chest, faintly glowing with the same silver light, was a mark that every old wolf in the hall recognized from stories told by grandmothers around winter fires. The sigil of the lost royal line, a bloodline everyone believed had been wiped out generations ago. The great hall fell utterly silent. Even the torches seemed to dim in the presence of that light. Damien stared, and for the first time in his life as Alpha King, he felt something he rarely allowed himself to feel: uncertainty. His own wolf stirred beneath his skin, not with challenge, but with something closer to instinctive recognition, an ancient part of him bowing to an authority even his conscious mind did not yet understand. One by one, wolves throughout the hall began to kneel. Some knelt out of genuine reverence, old enough to remember the stories of the royal bloodline and what it meant. Others knelt simply because their bodies responded before their minds could catch up, an instinct too deep to override. "That's not possible," Damien said, his voice unsteady in a way Elena had never expected to hear from him. "The royal line was destroyed. Everyone knows this. There were no survivors." "Everyone believed that," Elena said, and her voice now carried a resonance that had not been there before, layered with something ancient and undeniable. "My mother made certain of it. She changed our names. She hid us among the border packs, where no one would think to look for royal blood in wolves too poor to matter. She made me swear I would never reveal what I was unless I had no other choice." Her massive wolf form lowered its head until it was level with Damien's own eyes, and for the first time since he had taken the throne, the Alpha King found himself on one knee, not entirely by choice. His body understood something his pride had not yet accepted. "You made sure I had no other choice tonight," Elena said quietly. The silence in the hall stretched long and heavy. Damien remained on one knee, his dark eyes fixed on the pale wolf before him, searching for words that might undo what he had done, and finding none adequate to the task. "I misjudged you," he finally said, and the words came slower and heavier than any he had spoken that night, because for the first time in longer than he could remember, they were entirely true. Elena's wolf began to recede, the silver light folding back beneath her skin, until she stood once more in human form, breathing hard, her plain gray cloak now seeming almost incidental against the quiet power radiating from her. She looked down at the king kneeling before her, and for a moment, she felt something complicated stir inside her, not triumph exactly, but something close to it, tangled together with old grief and older exhaustion. "You mocked me in front of your entire pack," she said. "You called me weak, you called me trash. You told me to crawl back to a gutter I never came from." She let the silence sit for a moment before continuing. "An apology tonight does not undo 3 years of hiding, or the family I lost before that. But it is a beginning, if you mean it." Damien rose slowly, his usual composure entirely gone, replaced by something more honest than she had seen from him all evening. "I do mean it," he said, "and I intend to prove it, however long that takes." Elena studied him for a long moment, weighing his words against the ache still sitting in her chest. She did not answer him directly. Instead, she turned and walked toward the doors of the great hall, her steps steady, her head no longer bowed. No one laughed this time. No one dared. The wolves who had mocked her only minutes earlier now watched her leave with their heads lowered, some in continued reverence, others simply in stunned silence, trying to reconcile the border girl they had dismissed with the royal power they had just witnessed. As Elena stepped out into the cold night air, the stars bright and clear above the mountain stronghold, she allowed herself, for the first time in 3 years, to breathe without the weight of hiding pressing down on her chest. Whatever came next, whether Damien earned back the trust he had shattered, or spent years failing to, one truth remained unshaken in that hall, and would remain unshaken in the stories told about that night for years to come. The border girl they had mocked was royalty, and she had shown them, in a single midnight moment, exactly what they had almost let slip away.